Hello everybody, this is Max from MaxStanselPhotography.com, and I'm going to be going over how I process photos in Lightroom. I'm going to be using the 5-Step Tango, a Jack Davis invention, I guess. Anyway, I'm going to go over and how I actually do my landscapes and stuff. So I'm in Lightroom right now, and I'm in the Develop module. There are all these modules. I'll give a brief overview of Lightroom. Lightroom is a photo editing software, and it has a bunch of tabs on here. We have a library tab, and in this library tab you can make it thumbnail views where you can just see individual pictures, or you can double click on one and make it a full view. In the library module you have all your photographs that you have, so you can organize and everything. Lightroom is a big, powerful program, and it'll do lots of stuff. Now, I've picked this photograph. I'm not going to go through the actual selection process or my big workflow on how I go from, maybe I went and took 500 pictures a day and I narrowed them down to 10. I'm not going to go over all that. That might be another blog some other time, but I'm just going to go over the basic steps that I use to edit most of my photographs. So we have this photograph here that I took. This was down at Sunset Beach, North Carolina. All these pictures were out on the coast. And this is the final product. This is what I came up with. And I'll show you a before and after. By hitting the Y button, I get a, let's see here. Let me get it. You have to be in the right module here. In the Develop module, this is where we do all of our editing at. So here I'll hit the Y button and you'll see the before and after. And I took this picture, I exposed, I used a spot meter and I exposed for the sky because I wanted to get the sky right and I didn't want to blow it out. And a lot of the everything else is kind of dark. And you can see how we've opened it up and we've brightened it up and made it into a pretty balanced picture. So I'm going to go through the steps. There's a 5-Step Tango that I had in my blog, and you can follow along with me if you want to, but here we go. Let me go ahead and go back to the single screen view, and I'm just going to hit reset right here, and it's going to put everything back the way it was when the picture came in. So these are the raw values that the camera took. And so let's see what we got. So the first step in a Tango, you have pre-Tango stuff to do, like lens corrections, camera profiles, and chromatic aberrations. Over here on the right, we have all of our things that we can do. So let's go down to calibration. It comes default in as Adobe Standard right here, and you can change that by clicking on there. And if your camera has different profiles, these are profiles that come default with my camera that I was using. I have camera landscape, neutral, portrait, standard, vivid, and I could use one of these, and you can see how it changes what the picture actually looks like. You can put it in different ones, but I've created specific ones for my camera, custom profiles, and so I'm going to use the D800 Sunny because it was, it was sunset. It was kind of sunny, so I'm going to use that one. I'm also going to scroll up here to where it says lens corrections. Now some of these lens corrections I'm going to check enable profile corrections, and this is going to change or correct the defaults with the particular lens that I was using. In Lightroom it has all these different profiles for all the different lenses that you have, and it'll correct a lot of those lenses. I was using a 18 to 35 Nikon lens, and it kind of distorts a little bit, and you can see where, especially on the edges, you can see where Lightroom is correcting that. Also, there's a checkbox here for remove chromatic aberrations. These are like little highlights, and really hard for me to explain because I don't see them real well myself. But these are like little orange or pinkish highlights that go around corners on edges of stuff, and it really kind of looks bad. So anyway, those particular two things I have set up for Lightroom. When I import, these are already checked. So I don't usually have to check these. These are already done. All right, and so we've gone through the pre-tango on this particular photograph. So now we'll get to the step number 1 of the tango, which is white balance and crop. So and what we're doing here is we're telling Lightroom what type of light we were in. Well, I don't really have a lot of good spots to hit. Let's see. I can take my little eyedropper here and I can come up here and click, and it says it's at 4500. So it did change it a little bit. Here in the custom view, if I wanted to pick daylight, I can click on daylight, and you see how it warms everything up. That actually looks kind of good. Or I could go to cloudy. It changes the colors a little bit more. I can go to as it was shot. It was shot at 4200. This is the Kelvin scale. And it was shot at 4200. But if I move the slider to the right, it warms it up. And if I move it to the left, it cools it off, or blue, gives it a little bit of blue tint. I kind of like the, let's go with the daylight. I didn't use that before, but it kind of gives it that warm, glowish look. I might not like that later on, but tell you what, let's go to, let's leave it as it was shot. And if we need to come back, we can come back later and fix that. Cropping. If I wanted to crop this photograph, this would be the little icon that I'd push on to crop, and it gives me a crop. So I can push it in, and then you notice all 4 sides kind of go in together. Or I can, and it has this little lock here. So this little lock keeps everything kind of hooked together, and it kind of works as one. If I unlock it, then I can move one side over, or I can bring one side down, and I can move the sides independently of each other. I usually keep that locked. Also, you can pick your aspect ratio. If you want it 8x10 or 4x5, you can click on it, and it goes ahead and crops it for you. The only time I use that is when I'm actually like doing portraits and somebody wants an 8x10 or something like that. So anyway, I've got it locked. I'm just going to come in just a little bit just to say we cropped some. Get some of this extra stuff out of the sides. So there we go. I'm done. So now what we've done, we've actually we've told Lightroom what our color is by adjusting the white balance, and we've also given it the size of where it's, the box of where it's going to do all its algorithms and try to figure out, what to do. Number 2 on the 5-step tango is real simple, is to come down here and hit the auto button. Now I know as photographers we don't like to use anything auto. We don't like to P on our camera for professional. We like to have everything in manual, but Lightroom is a strong program. Let's see what it will do. So I hit auto and boom, look what it does. Look how much it brightens everything up. Now if we go down here and look at all these sliders, we can see what it's actually done. It's increased the exposure by 2.5 stops, which was probably about right because it was pretty underexposed. It dropped off on contrast a little bit. That's a hard one for me to actually notice and see when I'm moving the slider around. I can move the slider up and move it back, but it's kind of hard for me to kind of see what it's actually doing. So I kind of like letting auto figure that out for me. Highlights, it dropped down to highlights because we had this real white spot. Remember I had exposed for the top, and shadows and everything else. I use auto a lot. Sometimes it brings it up a little bit too bright for me. So I'm just going to double click on the exposure and bring that up where I think it should be. So there I go. So I'm going to use the auto function, but I've just adjusted the exposure just a little bit. And I also like to use clarity. So if we go to step number 3, which would be if you were doing all these separately without using the auto, but I'll let auto do a little bit. I'm going to come down here and I'm going to adjust to clarity because I'm a clarity type of guy. I like clarity. And notice when I adjust clarity, the brightness gets a little bit more bright. And I'm going to do the same with the vibrance. I always like a little bit of vibrance in there. So I'm going to push that in the 20s. This clarity might be a little bit too much. Clarity actually, it has to do with contrast also. Vibrance is making the colors that are not already vibrant. It's actually adding a little bit of saturation to them and brightening them up a little bit to let them come out and see. Brighten up a little bit. And saturation, I don't put a whole lot of saturation. It's usually less than 10. 6 looks good. So we'll stick 6 in there. So there we go. We have our histogram up here, and you can see that we're a little on the dark side. Now we can brighten that up by taking our blacks, and we can move our black slider to the right, and we can knock that out. I don't mind a little bit of black in there, but yeah, that looks pretty good right there. Let's see, what's next on our whites and blacks? Well, there we go. That's where I was at, whites and blacks. I'm not going to mess with the whites any because they seem to be all right, but if I drop them down, you can see what it does, and if I brighten them up, ooh, it really blows them out. So it was somewhere in here. So that's about where I'm going to leave it. Now, I've already adjusted vibrance and vignette. Vignette can be done a couple of ways here. There's actually a spot down here for vignetting that I don't use too much. Pros crop vignetting, so if look at there, I can go that way, or I can go darker. I can make it dark around there. I don't usually use this. This is one of the things that I don't use. We have a circular gradient filter right here, and if you hit the command button, and while you have this in motion, hit the command button, oops, hit the command button and double click in there, it'll bring that filter out and set your thing to exposure here. I use that on exposure, and I can darken that up just ever so slightly on the edges. And it does a really good job if that's what I wanted to do. I don't usually do that with landscape photographs, but I could if there was something in the middle that I wanted to really highlight. And I could invert the mask, and now everything in the middle is dark and it's light on the outside. But to do away with that, I'll just double click there and there's nothing there. So I didn't use that. I just wanted to show you how it would use. Post Tango, it goes into sharpening and noise reduction. Sharpening and noise reduction is found right here in the detail tab. And if you look in here, you can see that it's kind of grainy. And I can bring my noise reduction up, and it'll soften that up. You have to be careful. If you do it too much, it'll soften the whole picture, and we don't really want to do that. Noise hides in the dark spots. That's where the noise hides. And if I wanted to bring sharpening up, I could bring it up just a little bit. And there's a mask here where it tells it where to mask, where to actually do the sharpening at. And if you hold your Alt key down and move this, you can tell it not to sharpen everything, but just these things that are in white. And so I'm doing basically just the edges and stuff, and that's where I want the sharpening at anyway. Let's see, I'm looking at this photograph, and I want to bring out the shadows a little bit. So I can come back here now. Let's brighten it up a little bit. Not a whole lot, just, well, this is a whole lot. I don't usually go this far on the thing, but it was pretty dark. But now my sky is a little bit too bright. So I'm going to use a filter up here that's a gradual neutral density filter, for a better term. I'll bring this down and just drag it down, and then I can, let's moody up the sky a little bit. See what I can do to the sky. And this is what a neutral density filter does when you're out in the field. So I'm just going to do it just a little bit. There we go. Done. And so I'm kind of liking the way that picture's looking. It might be a hair on the dark side. There we go. Just a little bit. Brighten it up. So you can look at my histogram, and you can see I've got space over here. If I was clipped out, the little triangle would be white, and if I was clipped out over here, it'd be white over here. So I'm pretty much done with that picture. So we can see a before and after by hitting the Y button. It brings a before and after. And you can see a big difference in those two. So yeah, that's pretty much that. Let's go to a different picture. There goes a before and after of what I had done to this picture. And I I didn't really use this picture, but it was a good one to show some examples. So I'm going to hit my Y button again, bring it down to one shot. I'm going to reset everything, and I'm going to go through the Tango a little bit quicker. So here we go. I've got a white balance of 3900. My goodness. So the first thing is, well, let's go down and do all our pre-Tango stuff. I like clicking those two, and you see how it really changed that lens. So I click those two. Let's see, let's go to camera profile all the way at the bottom. And we're going to use the 800 Sunny. Can't really see a big change there. I'm going to come over here in my white balance. As shot, let's go to daylight. Look how orange that makes that. That's a little bit too much for me. I'm going to pull that down somewhere in here. And I'm definitely going to crop this photograph. Now, I don't really like that crop right there. You know, but I want to make this a portrait oriented instead of a landscape oriented. So I'm going to hit the X button while I'm in here. Hit the X button and it will change it for me. Now I don't want to see all this big old white spots. I want this to be pretty much a a portrait of this bird, and I want him to be sitting high and pretty right there. So I'm going to hit done, and there we go, we've got him. All right, now I'm going to hit the I'm going to do this a little bit more. I don't like that big white spot in there. I think that kind of messes me up, so I'm going to crop them a little bit more. All right, now I'm going to hit the auto button, and that cleaned it up kind of good for me. It actually brought down the exposure a little bit. I like clarity. I'm going to bring up the clarity. I like the way that kind of sharpens things up. A little bit of vibrance. I might even cool that down just a hair, and just a little bit of saturation. A little bit of saturation. Alright, and now whites and blacks. My black is, I guess right in here, it's clipped out a little bit. I'm going to bring that up a little bit. Boom. Fix that the way I wanted it. I'm going to go into my post-Tango stuff, which is sharpening. And you can see I've got a lot of noise here. I'm going to bring my noise up a little bit. Going to kind of smooth it out a little bit. And I am going to bring my sharpening up. This is a formula that works pretty good for me. I'm usually around right in here, and that usually sharpens it up pretty good for me. I'm going to do some other stuff. I want to get rid of all these little, he just landed and he's got all this water droplets that are kind of coming off of him, and it's kind of distracting, and I'm going to get rid of those. So I'm going to use this clone and heal brush, and I'm going to use it, and I'm just going to make it kind of small. And then we'll just go and we'll click on these. And Lightroom will find and fix all these for us. Let's see. And we'll just go through and click on all these and get rid of them. I think that'll clean it up quite a bit. There's one right there. Let's see, there's one here. And one more about right there. I'm going to hit done, and that will have got rid of, well, there's a couple more there. Let's get those. They're hiding inside, ain't they? Let's see. Let's see, let's get rid of a couple of these. Some of these didn't work too good, so you can delete them if you don't like them. Just right click and hit delete, and that little poofy cloud comes up. So now I can see my two. They're giving me problems. I'm just going to grab both of them and let that go somewhere else. Hit done. And I've got one more right there that I want to get rid of. Let's see, where'd it go? It hid. I'm going to delete that one. I'm going to let this grab both of these. And that should be rid of them. And then hit done. So there we go, I've got rid of all those. So that's pretty much it for that one. Let's put a little vignette on this one, just because we can. So I've got this this one here highlighted. I'm going to hold down my control key or command key and double click, and that puts it right in there. I'm in the exposure mode, and I'm going to drop this down a little bit just to highlight him up a little bit. I'm going to call him done, and let's hit the Y, and then we have a before and after. This one's kind of overexposed, blown out, and this one kind of brings him in. He's got, I like that little rim lighting there. I wish he was a little bit more sharper. That was me messing up with the camera, but that would have been a lot better if he was a little bit sharper. All right, let's go to our last one here, and there goes a before and after, and you can't really see a whole lot there. Let me hit the Y button and bring it back in the single pane view, and I'm going to hit the reset, and we will see the whole picture. So we've got the whole picture here. Gosh, we got all kinds of stuff going on here. We've got all kinds of bendy lines. Look at that bend around. The building's kind of crooked. So first, let's do what we're supposed to do here. We're supposed to do white balance. Now we actually got something that's a little bit white in this. So we can bring this over and click on there, and we've changed our white balance to 5200, which is right at daylight. And I'm going to crop. I'm going to crop some of this stuff out of here because I don't want all this stuff. But I don't want it all together there. So I'm going to click on the little thing there, and I'm going to bring this in. I want to get right about right there. I want this out of the way. And I want this to come down. Let's see what happens if I go to, let me go back. Let me lock that. Let me go to 8x10. This might work a little bit better for me. There we go. It looks a little bit better. Alright, I'm kind of liking that. Let's go with done. Alright, I still have this thing giving me a problem here, and I'm going to try to remove that later. Well, let's go to hit the auto button. The auto button brightened everything up by 1/3 of a stop, which looks pretty good. And I'm kind of liking that. That's not too bad. I'm going to bring my clarity up a little bit because that just sharpens everything up a hair. Vibrance, always bring it up. I like those vibrant colors. And a little bit of saturation, always keep that below 10 because it get a bit too saturated. Oh, we forgot to hit our 2 little buttons down here, didn't we? See how everything's kind of crooked? We're going to straighten those out. That's a big difference, isn't it? Big difference in that. So that straightened everything out quite a bit. And yeah, I'm liking that a whole lot better. So, so I'm liking that, but you know what I'm not liking? I'm not liking this little line right here. So I want to get rid of that little line. I've gone through, I kind of like the way everything's done. I don't have to adjust my whites or blacks. I've already adjusted my vibrance. I'm not going to put a vignette on it. But let's get rid of this one wire right here. So let's go to the heel brush here. And I'm just going to take it and drag it. And let's see what it can do. So there we go. And let's hit done. No, not too good. Let's revisit it just by clicking here. It puts a little button there. You can click on it. But I want it to go from this side, not that other side. And so I can adjust this to kind of get it to look about right. Let's hit done. And looky there. That looks a whole lot better. Yeah, I'm liking that. That looks a whole lot better. So there, and that's how you remove lines. You can remove power lines. Sometimes they're tough to do, and you might have to go to Photoshop. Look, I still got half of it here. Let's get rid of this half if we can. Let's see what we can get. See if we can make it look decent. These are little details that people are not really going to look at real hard. And so you can really get in here and get rid of them. And so at a first glance, nobody would even know that there was a power line that came through here. I mean, if they look close, they can see that little part that's in there, and I could get rid of that if I wanted to, but I don't think it's distracting. So I'm not even going to mess with it. So, boom, there you go, the 5-step tango. You know, if we really wanted, we could really crank up some of the stuff, and there's a lot of other stuff you can do, but this is just basically the 5-step tango that I wanted to go over and let everybody see how I do my photographs. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope maybe it wasn't too confusing, but for Max at maxstanselphotography.com, I'm signing out, and thanks for watching.